Hello and welcome to the Microlise podcast. I'm your host today. I'm Matthew Summers. I'm the head of global marketing. I'm also joined today by Caroline Hicks of the DVSA. Hello, Caroline.
Hi.
So can you just do a quick introduction of yourself, your role and kind of your experience in the transport and logistics industry?
Yeah, so Caroline Hicks, I'm the Head of Enforcement, Regulatory Services and Transformation at DVSA, which is part of the Enforcement Directorate. I have within my teams the prosecution teams, counter-fraud teams, and look after the remote enforcement office and earned recognition, which might feature quite a bit in this conversation, and have a lot of experience within DVSA and its precursors, VOSA and Vehicle Inspectorate. So I have started as a traffic examiner and taken several roles throughout the agency.
And obviously you've taken part in today's roundtable webinar with the rest of the guests. And what was kind of some of those key takeaways from the discussions that have been had? It was there was a kind of a large focus on bridge strikes as a topic, but also around culture and businesses focusing on drivers instead of just their own operational.
I think for me, the focus on drivers and how important drivers are was the big takeaway. And I think people think a lot about the vehicles, and they are important, but the drivers are absolutely critical. And probably for everybody around the table, the focus on making sure the drivers are considered more is very important.
And from your point of view, what's the most common compliance failure you're seeing across operators in the UK?
I think we get drivers again that things like prohibitions, the top prohibition for many, many, many years has been tyres. And as I mentioned in the round table, if a driver does a proper walk around check, they can see a lot of these things. A lot of the time, our roadside encounters are done in places with no more equipment than the driver has on his walk around check, and yet they're not picking up things. So that check and how that fits into the maintenance regime is absolutely critical, and the driver's attitude to that and understanding how critical a role they play.
And do you think, the adoption of technology within fleet operators, with digital walk-around checks, are you seeing there being a bit of a correlation between improvement of compliance with those tools being brought into operations to make it even more, straightforward to complete those walk-around checks and actually have a very strong digital auditable process around it?
It gives a very clear auditable process. So if you can use technology to record it, and then if that fits in with the operator, they can demonstrate that they took action as a result of what the driver has reported and how that fits in with your preventative maintenance inspections, those periodic maintenance inspections, which are preventative, not supposed to be reactive when something's gone wrong. And you should be able to see that comprehensive system of maintenance that starts with the driver and goes all the way through. So it can be very useful in those situations.
And from your view, we've just talked about technology, and within your career, you've been very focused on bringing data-driven decisions and bringing more data within the DVSA's own strategy. What's your view on how technology can not only enable compliance, but why it also still comes down to people and culture within operators to embed, more risk-focused operation?
I think the use of technology is increasing, but people still have to consider that the person sat behind the wheel of the vehicle is a human. And what does that mean and what part they play? I think one of the big issues is if you schedule how drivers are driving, but schedule not just where they're going to, but where they're going to stop, where they're going to have the brakes, but still considering that human element of, is the driver somebody who's going to be able to perform better if they have two brakes? Driver's hours rules are limits, they're not targets. And actually understanding that in the middle of that is a human who you have to actually consider.
So when you look across, the various number of operators you've worked with, what are those practical takeaways to stop compliance being that box ticking exercise, and being embedded within their culture and their approach to how they offer their end service to their customers?
I think it's very difficult. I appreciate that the haulage industry and the PSV industry, they have very tight margins. It's very difficult. They make hard decisions, but I think one of the things that we've done recently with the earned recognition scheme and bringing in road to earned recognition, which does use technology, it uses the reporting processes, how you can report, how you are complying with everything. And we always talk to people, we're talking to local authorities and councils, contract with safe, not cheap. Cheap is a false economy. If vehicles break down, if they get stopped by us, if they have accidents, even worse, if there is a road safety incident where people get hurt, injured, and the most serious of all, where they kill people, always go for safety, can't be underrated.
And do you think that, how do you think operators can better use data and technology to manage risk proactively and not reactively?
Mentioned earlier about annual test, when you see a vehicle that goes into a garage for a week before its annual test and has 20 things done to it. Actually, the annual test is the minimum road safety standards. You should be able to meet them every day of the week that the vehicle is in use. Using that data to actually see, is our maintenance regime preventing anything going wrong? But also we talked a lot about risk and looking at the data and analysing the data for the near misses, not just when an incident happens, but when an incident nearly happens, and making sure you're preventative. So having a dynamic risk assessment process for how you run your business.
So if you could advise every operator on one thing to embed stronger compliance in their culture, what do you think it would be, that key takeaway?
It would be to make sure that every part of your operation understands the importance of the role they play, because it is a combination of roles that make it a safe operation. It's not one person, it needs to be everybody together. And if people don't understand their role in that safety risk assessment, then they won't fulfil it.
And do you think, I've just been speaking to Richard Turfitt about that maybe there is an opportunity for operators to educate their own workforce even more around what is involved in being compliant and why it's, their impacts and their role they place. What role do you see for senior leadership in driving compliance beyond just the transport office? Do you think there's a mindset shift that the senior leadership teams should take within a business to embed that a little bit further than just their kind of day-to-day?
I think when we look at operators, you have to look at the operation as a whole, because regardless of what the business is, if they can't transport their goods, it's going to cause them problems. So everybody needs to be concerned with the safe transport operation.
Okay. A few more light-hearted questions. So what's the biggest myth about the DVSA and, specifically enforcement?
I think one of the biggest things is this, we're out to get them, don't complain if something's wrong because we'll target you. We really don't. We target based on serious and serial non-compliance. And actually, if people have got something that they want to report to us, please report it. We do not take action as a result of that, other than looking at what they're talking about. We're very fair, and we're not just there for that hard-edged enforcement. We do educate. We do have a very strong educational process. We publish lots of guides, and we really do want to talk to the industry and help the industry be compliant. We're not here just to catch them. We're here to help them so we don't have the problems in the first place.
So what would be your biggest frustration with how some operators approach compliance?
I think one of the big things we have is where people think that we are only there to catch them. It's, here's the guides. We do make everything available to you. Use it. Take what we could, the guide to maintaining roadworthiness. People say, well, I don't have to follow it. It's only a guide. Yeah, it's a guide of how you can get things right. And if you don't use our guide, you should have a really good one of your own.
Yeah. And I guess taking that seriously, it's
yes.
beyond a guide. It's there to support your business to be more effective, more productive.
It is a process which you can follow, which will keep you compliant.
So if you were to summarise, with the discussions you've had today around the roundtable and our discussion so far, what's that key message to operators on how to build, sustainable compliance culture, that focus that you think that all operators should to really have and embedded into their business?
You have a lot of information, use it. It's the same information that if we come out and look at your operation, it's the same information we'll use. We're not seeing anything different to you. So use it, and use it to drive your compliance, use it to drive your safety, because then you won't have any problems with us. You won't have any problems with the operator regime. The traffic commissioners will be very happy. I'm sure Richard would have said something similar. But you've got all that data. Don't ignore it. Please use it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Caroline.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience. And stay tuned for the next podcast that are coming up soon.